All right, so let's make a formal introduction for our listeners. Good afternoon, Mary. My name is Claudia. I'm calling you from Washington, D.C., from the studios in Fairfax City. We're very humble, grateful that Mary Fahl accepted our invitation to our show. Hey, Mary, welcome to the show, man.
Nice to be here. Nice to be here.
Thank you. So the last 2 years have been very weird for everybody. Some people believe in the vaccine, some people don't. COVID has affected some family and others. How the COVID affected you, your family? How you holding up now?
We're holding up just fine. And as I was speaking to you just pre-show, my husband and I are very into holistic health, very into it, and so we fared just fine. And I highly recommend 10,000 units of vitamin D a day. It has gotten me. It was something I learned years ago because I learned how to keep myself healthy on the road, and between the vitamins and everything else, we had COVID in December of 2020, and with what I did and my husband did, I was over it in a day and a half, and we were done. And so we've been healthy ever since. And it's not, I mean, I realize a lot of people had a bad experience with it. I know people that did. I'm not one of those people. My husband isn't one of those people. In fact, everybody in my family followed my protocol, and we were all fine, came through with flying colors. And I just think I wish that the government had encouraged people to lose weight, to take, vitamin D, things like that. I think it could have prevented a lot of people from getting it, especially the elderly, because they don't get enough sunshine. You know what I mean? And things like that. I mean, again, it's a dangerous illness. But I think that, well, anyway, I don't want to go into it, but we were fine. I mean, it was a drag to be stuck at home all the time. But, I got a lot of things done. That's when Mark and I decided we made the Christmas record. We re-released the Blu-ray of Dark Side of the Moon, the surround version. We got that done. And then we started work on this record. And what was tough about the past 2 years was my sister, Joan, got very ill, not from COVID. She had a very aggressive form of ALS that was horrible. It was horrible to watch this woman who burst into every room, just within the space of about a year and a half, go from that to not being able to speak or walk, or it was awful. And she died last year, and my mother died the same year. So it was that, but just of old age. My mother was very old, but so that was really hard to lose those two women who were like the most important women in my life. And so I was feeling like, where is my home now? Where is the place? I mean, I have my husband, but where is that place where you go for Christmas and you go for Thanksgiving, and all of that just was gone, just gone. And so part of doing this record, and Mark had gone through, my producer Mark, a similar thing. So we both sort of felt this longing to go back to like the music that was our home base. And for me, it was songs that I learned to play guitar with, the songs that reminded me of my youth, and the songs that when I was a kid and developing my own taste in music, the songs that went straight in, a lot of the Neil Young songs from after the gold rush, especially. I just remember I would sit in our big family bathroom with the good acoustics, with the good reverb, and I'd lock the door, and that's where I would play my guitar because it sounded so nice in there. And I learned all those Neil Young songs, and lots of Leonard Cohen and Judy Collins and Joni, of course, and so I just felt like I needed an escape. And those songs just wrapped around me like a warm blanket. And and especially the George Harrison. I went back to listening to that All Things Must Pass record, and that record got me through this past year. I went back and listened again, and there's something so deeply and naturally spiritual about George Harrison's songs. He's not, I wouldn't call him a singer's songwriter per se, because he wrote for himself, and George wasn't he was not a great singer. So he was limited in the way he wrote to a certain degree, but his lyrics in anyone else's hands would have sounded very preachy. But because it was George, and because he lived it and really, really believed it, those songs have always given me comfort, especially the one I recorded, Beware of Darkness. That song, those lyrics have stayed with me since I was a kid. They're like a wise old uncle's advice, basically. And so yeah, every song on that record has a meaning for me. And again, I know I have to get back to writing again, but I wasn't in the mood I was in too dark a place to write a song. I felt the last thing the world needed was, another dark song from a dark place. In fact, what I felt the world needed was something that would bring joy and escape. And so that's what I hope to accomplish.
That was a very good answer. Let's go back to the beginning. Were you born like in a musical family?
No.
A musical family. How old were you when you began perhaps taking piano lessons?
I performed when I was a little kid. My father used to put me up on the table when I was really little and make me sing for people. And but I could always sing. That's what I did. And I had siblings that were much older than me. I had siblings that were teenagers when I was a very little kid.
Yeah.
And so I had access to all their record collections. And, my sister had all the great female singers of the 60s, like Petula Clark. I used to win singing contests, singing Petula Clark songs, and Dusty Springfield, Nina Simone, a lot of mamas and papas. That was her. Then my oldest brother was the folkie in the house. So he had all the Tom Paxton and Phil Oakes and Peter, Paul and Mary. And just think of every folk singer of the 60s, and my brother had those. And then my other brother sort of was the rock and roll prog guy, Moody Blues and Pink Floyd. So all of that was being played in the house all the time. And I think I was privileged to get all of that soup in there. And then I liked a lot of, as a little kid, I liked a lot of show music, old Broadway music. I used to go down to the library where we could take out records. And I loved, when I was a little kid, I loved the cast album from South Pacific. And I never had voice lessons or anything like that ever. And but I used to sing along with that Broadway record with Mary Martin and Ezio Penza. I sang along with that record every single day. And I think I've always said to people those were my vocal coaches. I would sing along with Mary Martin, and it developed this bigness in my voice. And I sang along with all the men too. So I sang along with the tenor on the album, and I sang along, and so that record was my vocal training. And so if you added up all the music that was in the house and along with that, and then I always loved female singers with big voices. So I loved Mama Cass, and I loved Mary Travers, and then as I got older into my teen years, I loved British folk music. And I felt suddenly like I found people that sounded like me, that I resonated with. And so I listened to June Tabor and Richard and Linda Thompson, and lots of Sandy Denny, and lots of Annie Haslam, lots of Renaissance. I loved Renaissance. So that was sort of when I started to develop my own taste in music. But that's sort of my musical background. And then in high school, in school, I sang at all the shows they put on. I sang in, the musicals and things like that. And I sat in college. I played at little coffee houses and things like that. And I used to.
But in high school, so but before that, some kind of elementary, middle school, your parents didn't see that you were special, that you had a lot of talent, that you were very talented, that to hire like a,
No,
I don't
they
know,
did.
like a
They did.
coach
In
or.
fact, my father knew, especially. And one of the times when I was in elementary school, and I think I was, oh, I think I was 6 years old. It was they had the General Motors, the car company, the General Motors choir used to go around and sing at various places, and they came to perform at our church, and we had a big auditorium, so they performed there. And after the show, I guess they were all hanging around, and my father did that thing where he put me up on the table and he made me sing for them. And they asked him if I would join the choir and that I would sing with them as a soloist. And I was only 6 years old, and so I was too little to do anything like that. But they knew. I sang at all the church functions. I sang at all the different things. And my parents were very hands off. They didn't. We had to be very self-motivated in my family. If you wanted to do something, they didn't stop you. If I went and said, "Oh, can I have guitar lessons? Can you get me a guitar? They would do it, but they didn't push any of us in any particular direction. And in a funny way, I think that might have been good for me, because it served me well learning to be self-motivated. It did. It served me well. And as I said earlier, my family doesn't particularly like my music. They just don't. My brother is a Nashville kind of a guy. That's what he listens to, and they just don't like it. So I had, again, it doesn't bother me when people don't like my music. I'm an acquired taste, and it was a good training for me, not to take criticism personally.
Yeah, well, you need to be strong that because it's,
You do.
I
Oh,
mean,
you have to have a tough hide to be in this business. I mean,
yeah.
a really tough hide. And this business is not for sissies, not at all. And you will get, they have 1,000 ways of saying no. And what I learned over time was that all it takes is one good yes. And I've been lucky to have a couple of good yeses in my life. Peter Gelb gave me a good yes. Peter Gelb at Sony Classical.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, and again, not everybody gets what I do. And that's okay.
A lot of people do. A lot of people do, Mary. And I'm glad that, for a sort of personality point of view, that you didn't give up. And
No. And I'm not at this point. It's too late. I'm in all the way now. There's no going back at this point. Yeah.
So you finished. You were in high school.
Yeah.
Were you part of any bands or? I mean,
No.
I suppose you needed to take a decision, make a decision. Say, well, I'm 18 years old.
Well, here's what I
can
did.
go to college.
Well, no. I'll tell you what I did. My first year in college, I wanted to be an actress, and I got into the NYU program, the theater program there, and it just wasn't for me. I didn't like it. First of all, I didn't feel that in that program I was getting a good academic education. I felt it wasn't that I was so smart, it was that NYU was so easy. And it was just easy for me to study the night before and get A's. And again, it's not because I'm so smart, it's because it was too easy. And
Okay.
so I felt like I was I just didn't feel that the actors there, I felt like these people are not my tribe. These are not my people. When I work with musicians, I know these are my people. These are the people I belong with. This is my tribe. And I didn't feel that way around actors. And I didn't think I was good. I didn't think I was great. I knew that I was a good singer, but I I didn't feel like I was as good an actress as a singer. And there were people in my class who were great. People that are now working on Broadway, famous people were in my class. And I thought, no, don't do this. If you're not going to be great at it, don't do it. It's too hard. It's too much of a struggle. So I left and I applied to McGill University in Montreal and I got in and I went there and I got a phenomenal education there. And it was challenging. That was the challenging academic program that I was looking for, that you didn't study the night before and get an A at McGill. You had to work hard, and I did, and I loved it. I liked sort of the international flavor of the city. I met kids from all over the world there, and I loved the fact that it had that sort of it's a French city. I had never been anywhere like that before. And those were some of the happiest years of my life there. I loved it. And as I say, I got a first rate education and it was a fraction of what NYU cost my parents. I think I paid $800 a year for my tuition, $800 a year. And so anyway, that's what I did. But I left acting and I sang up in Montreal, but little coffee houses. And I always sang in the stairwell of my dorm. I used to go in there and bring my guitar, and people would come and sit on the stairs and listen. And then when I got out of school, it's just as I say, I moved to New York, and just surviving there is overwhelming if you don't have help. My parents their attitude was, you're on your own now. We're not going to help you. Do whatever you're going to do. So it was tough. It was very hard. I wish things had been a little bit easier. But in any case, by the time I met Julie and Emil, we were all in the same boat basically, and just pooled our talents, and the rest is history.
So before we go there, so you end up going to Europe with your sister for like a year and a half, right?
Yes, when I got out of McGill and Annie I worked for 2 years. Then she got out of school, and then when she got out, we traveled. I had never had a chance to do that, and I did. I went to Europe, and we were there for a while. And oh gosh, we were in Portugal, which I loved. We spent a lot of time in Holland. And it's something you should do when you're young and you can do it. You have to. And we had many adventures, and then it was time to come home. I had to come home and face the music, as they say.
Yeah.
And
the music at the time when you came back, music wasn't part of your life yet, right? So you knew you had a voice, singing here and there, make a little bit of money on coffee show.
I knew I had to do it. I just didn't know where to start. And as I said, I didn't write at the time, and I just didn't think that was a possibility. So I didn't. And anyway, so I told you what happened. I think I mentioned it in the pre-show that then I applied to Columbia University's post-grad pre-med, and I got in. And just as I was about to attend that, I met Julie, and she introduced me to Emil, and the rest is history.
Yeah. And
so that was fate. I will say that was fate. And yeah.
And you guys did 2 records. This is the first one, right? So it's if you can see it,
there it is. Yeah.
It's unbelievable, this record. I mean, how long did it take to put it together? And then,
well, we played in New York we got signed in about 2 years.
Yeah.
From the start of playing around, at little places all around New York, and the places got bigger, bigger and we developed a following, and then record companies began to come down and scout. And you know, we were courted by a few labels. A&M was one that kept coming down, and then finally we got signed by Epic. So then we were signed in the fall of 92, but then we started making the record in 93. We right after Christmas, right after the New Year's, actually, we went down to Nashville, and we worked with Glenn Rosenstein down there. And I remember I drove down with him to Nashville because Glenn didn't want to fly, so we all had to drive in a caravan together. And I remember he played in the car going down. He played Duran Duran, Ordinary World, you know.
Oh yeah, of course.
I finally make my way. And he said, that's my inspiration for what I'm going to do with you guys. And I love that song. I love that song. And that's what he did. And he was a great producer for us. I think he really got it, and he gave us a unique sound. He got the soaring quality of the music and the sort of haunting quality of it. And he brought in musicians from Nashville. You know, he brought in Kenny Greenberg to play on guitar, and we had Chad Cromwell on drums. Just great guys from Nashville. And we worked at these old studios there. And he was like a camp counselor with us too, because he knew that this was our first record and how excited we were to be there. And it was just a thrill. And so he would take us around to all the watering holes where all the big stars would go, and in Nashville. And I remember the first lunch that we were there, he introduced me to the guy who had played keyboards for Patsy Cline. And I was, oh my God, this is so exciting. And he gave us a unique sound. And he was a very domineering personality, which was very good for us, because I used to laugh and say he was like Tito and we were like Yugoslavia. Okay, just a lot of different factions.
Yeah.
And we needed a dictator who just would take over. And that's what he was. And he did a great job. And I think that record stands the test of time. And I think it was just, the songs were great. I think we really honed a unique sound with beautiful harmonies and passionate lyrics and soaring melodies. And you know, and I think I brought a unique sound as well. So the whole combination was great. And I think on the second record, I don't think, we should have stayed with the producer that we had. I think it was a good record, but I think that we lost some of the uniqueness. I think that we sounded like a lot of other bands on the second record. There was something, that haunting quality wasn't as present. It's a good record. It's not my favorite record. And I'm not terribly fond of a lot of the songs on that record. I love Deep As You Go. I like Adam and Eve and Falling Farther In. And that's about it. I never sing the other songs on that record. So.
What was the chemistry of all of you for the second album? It's like a boyfriend girlfriend relationship that is being growing apart, and
it was very hard for me, and it was yeah. I just went in with a focus and knew I had to get the job done, but it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun at all. And it was that was not a happy time of my life, but I did my job and I got it done. And you know, we toured some again, but we didn't have, according to the label, they didn't feel we had a hit on the second record. I disagree. I think Deep As You Go would have been a great radio song, but they didn't feel that way. And so you just feel them pulling away, you know. And I always say, before we would go out on the road, when we were doing well there, they'd always send these big giant bouquets before, they were like big sprays, and you knew that they were getting less and less interested, because the bouquet, the floral arrangements got cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and smaller. You can always tell if your ship is going down. So and we were dropped, and you know, the band, we weren't getting along with each other, and I'm sure that that didn't help things with the label either. So that was that. And for me, I had, as much as it was sad that we were dropped, I had an enormous sense of relief. I don't know how much more I could have taken of it. It was I was always in fight or flight. Always. My stomach was in a knot 24/7. I dreaded going on the road with them. It was dread, pure dread. And I used to be sick. I'm never sick now. I used to be sick all the time from the stress.
Yeah.
And it would have killed me. If I had stayed, it would have killed me. And I just, I lived in dread. And it was such a relief when it was over. And it was also before we were dropped. I mean, I was told in no uncertain terms that in a very, very condescending way, very patronizing, condescending way, that I would never write, never be allowed, not even ever in the future, not ever, not allowed to collaborate, not anything, and that no one took me seriously, that I could never have a band of my own, that I was too stupid to have a band of my own, that I was too. It was the most insulting conversation I've ever had in my life, and it was like, now dear, you know you could never have your own career. No, you know that, right? And I remember thinking at the time, thank you for that conversation, because that's going to be my jet fuel for the next 10 years.
Absolutely.
And no matter how long it takes, you son of a bitch, I'm going to get a record deal, and it's going to be a good one. And it did. It was the jet fuel. It was the greatest gift I've ever been given, because, you know, when you get turned down a lot, you get a lot of no's. You have to have that fortitude to keep on going no matter what. And that gave me the fortitude. And so in about, well, it was, we broke up in sometime in 96-ish. And then it took 5 years to get a deal, but I got it in 2001. I was signed to none other than Sony Classical. And that was that. And before that, I learned how to write. It was scary because the bar had been set so high with October Project. They were very good songwriters. And so I learned after. It took me a couple of years, and I figured it out, and I started writing good songs. And by that point, I had gone back to recruiting, and I was a freelance recruiter, and I was making a great deal of money. I was the sole recruiter for a time. This was in the late 90s, for the entire Martha Stewart company. I had a partner, and the two of us freelance did everything, and I was doing extremely well financially, more than I never made any money with October. I was broke with October Project because I didn't write. And so I poured all of that money, and I was also doing television commercials. I was singing for Nike and different car commercials, things like that. And so between those two things, I could finally buy a car, and I could buy an apartment, but I also took that money and I put it into putting a band together, and I handpicked great people, and several of those people ended up becoming members of Olabelle, which is a great band. I mean, they're not together anymore, but they were signed to Columbia after, and in fact, a guy that I wrote with a lot, Byron Isaacs, he plays with the Lumineers now. So they were wonderful people, and not just great musicians, but nice people to hang around with too. And I made a decision after October Project that I would never, ever, ever put myself in that situation again. That I would only work with people that I just resonated with, and that I was comfortable around, and And that's been the way that I've worked ever since. So in any case, I put a band together and I took them out on the road. I made a little EP. It was my demo. And I thought, let's see if I can have an audience, if there's anybody out there. And I started selling it, and I hired a PR person, and I got a radio promo person, and I did all of that. And I still thought, well, I'm probably not going to get a deal because I'm too old now. And I was, I don't know, 40. And then I got a call from Sony Classical because they found out I was doing sort of some medieval songs, and I was singing things like Ben Indi Habibi, just putting those in the show. And they were looking for something different. And so they called me up to come up and audition for them. And that's what I did. I went up and I auditioned. Just me and a piano player. And I sang some of my songs. I sang Ben Indi Habibi. And then they wanted me to sing an aria. And I explained to them that I wasn't Renee Fleming. I wasn't a trained opera singer, but they said they knew that, but they wanted me to do it anyway. And so I sang Nessun Dorma for them. And they told me afterwards, Peter Gelb told me that that's what closed the deal for him. And the funny thing is, I will tell you, I don't think I've told this story very often, but the really odd thing was, when I told you those lost years of my 20s?
Yeah.
I had a job in Manhattan, and it was one of my first jobs. And I wasn't making much money. And I had an awful apartment in Brooklyn, just awful, just a dump. And my air conditioning was broken, and it was a really swelteringly hot summer. And so to get myself cooled down when I would come home at night, I would fill up this bathtub, this grimy old bathtub with cold water. And I would get into the tub, and to get my mind off the heat, I would sing Pavarotti songs. I had this one Pavarotti disc, and it had the greatest hits, and I would sing all of these songs, and I thought I would learn. I taught myself all of these Pavarotti arias, first of all because I can sing like a tenor, and so I learned Una furtiva lagrima and Nessun Dorma. I could sing them all, and I learned them phonetically. And and once you learn something phonetically, you never forget it. So when they asked me to sing an aria, Nessun Dorma, it's like, bring it on! I can do it. And I just I sang it like me, and that's what happened.
Yeah, so this is the album.
I would never have thought that would have happened if you told me that was going to be a turn of events, I would never have believed it. I would never have believed it, ever. It was just a shock to me. And then I ended up, they didn't know quite what to do with me, but I ended up writing for movies. I wrote for 2 different films. I wrote the theme song for Gods and Generals. It was, and I got to, and they wanted me to sing with an orchestra, which was, if I ever get to heaven, if there's a heaven, I would love to sing with an orchestra up there, because that was just heaven on earth for me to do that. That was really something.
Are you a religious person?
I would say I'm a very spiritual person. Yes, I do. I have a conversation going, and let's just say there's an open channel there all the time. So yes, I think there's a reason for everything, and I think that I also believe in the power of intention. I think intention is a form of prayer, and if you know what you want and you go out, you have to show that you're willing to work. This is the theme of my life has been, you have to do all the work. You have to work like hell. And I call it shaking an apple tree. You got to shake and shake and shake. And you'll know that it comes from on high when a little pear falls into your hand.
Yeah.
It's not what you shook for, but that's their way of saying, yeah, we did that. But you have to show them you're willing to do the work. And that's been the story of my life. basically.
All right. And that album, this album that you're referring to,
Oh yeah.
what was the motivation to, include a couple of tracks that were not in English? They allow you to do that to.
Well, they insisted that I put una. I mean, they insisted I sing an
Oh,
aria.
okay. So,
That
yeah.
was no. There was no. I was like, oh God, are you sure? No, that was not an option. I
Yeah.
had to sing an art. They insisted that I do that, and I wanted to sing Ben Idi Habibi.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I loved that song. I discovered that when I was on tour with October Project, and I bought some records in Madrid, Spain, and I love the music of medieval Spain, especially the Jewish music, the Sephardic music is Ladino. Oh my God. It's so sensual. And so I came home and I discovered that song. And I remember when I broached October Project about maybe us doing something like that, and they thought it was stupid and they made fun of me. And so, but I ended up doing it on Sony Classical, and oh, we had great musicians on that. That was really, really fun. We had an incredible percussionist, Iki Levy from Israel, play on that. And that was wonderful. I love working with fantastic musicians. It's an honor, And then what else? The album was probably too broad in retrospect. Should have been, and I don't think that, well, I know for a fact that radio did not understand. I think they were expecting a solo Mary Fahl record that would have been the third October Project record. And that's not what this was, nor was it what Sony Classical wanted.
Yeah.
And Peter Gelb left soon after this, and he went to the Metropolitan Opera, and then everybody, here's my husband opening up the door. Everybody that was there got fired. So then BMG came in and took over, and my contract wasn't renewed. So, that was disappointing. But as I always say, I cry a little bit. I take about a month and a half. That's about the arc of what it takes. And then I wash my face, and I always put on my good luck hat. I have a big fur hat. And I went into New York, and I got myself a new manager. And then that's when we started talking about doing Dark Side of the Moon, and the rest is history. Hello?
Yeah.
Rich, we
Hello.
can see you.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Put my clothes back on.
So,
Okay, that's okay. Don't worry.
Rich!
He's a very good person, actually. So.
He is. He just came up. He's playing tennis, and
Yeah. Well, so the best thing that happened to you was the last 2 years of your life with October Project, because
Yeah.
that give, like you mentioned, that gives you the
yes,
fuel
absolutely.
to do your own
doubt-
thing. I mean, you to
Yes,
follow
no
your
doubt about it. It was
passion and yeah.
right. No, definitely, it was a platform that brought me into the world of professional music, to the recording and everything else. So no, I mean, it was I was lucky. We were all lucky, and it gave me my start, and I used to say, I had a good friend who was in the business who gave me a bit of advice. And she said, no matter what happens, no matter how hard it gets, don't quit. Don't quit the band. Because if you quit the band, it'll be your fault. Don't quit. Just no matter how bad it gets, just hang in there, because if you have that under your belt, you can always get another deal. And that was the best advice I've ever gotten. And I did. It was tough, but I grit my teeth, and I stayed with it. And I'm glad I did.
All right. So after that, you began looking for. So what do I do next? And write with something.
So I started writing. One of the first people I wrote with was a guy, Bob Riley, from a band called Grace Pool.
Yeah.
Rich, you're doing it again, honey? Oh, I won't. There you go. And a band called Grace Pool. And that was great. And Bob had a studio in New York. And so we wrote together. We did some demos. and a lot of the songs ended up on the Sony Classical record,
Yeah.
Raging Child, Paolo. And then I started writing with Ramsey McLean. And I learned a lot about how to write a song from Ramsey. Ramsey was, if you remember the first Harry Connick records, like do you remember the early Harry?
Yeah,
Really?
I remember. Yeah, I know the top of my head, but I know what you're talking about.
All right. Ramsey wrote all of the lyrics and really gave Harry sort of an interesting twist. Um, Ramsey had been was nominated for an Academy Award. He wrote the theme song for Sleepless in Seattle. It's called A Wink and a Smile. And he's a fascinating person. Ramsey McLean is probably the most fascinating human being I have ever met. He's from New Orleans.
Yeah.
And he's a unique creature. And he's one of my closest friends in the whole world. And, I speak to him every couple of weeks and we have a 3-hour conversation, and he's very funny, and he's just a true character. But what I learned from him was just, first of all, keep notebooks everywhere, keep them everywhere in the house, and just, you get an idea, write it down, underline it, get another idea, write it down. And he said, this will save you. This is going to save you. You're gonna be stuck for an idea, and you'll find it in those notebooks. You just will. And my God, he was right. He was right. That saved me. And so I got into the habit of keeping notebooks. And God, yeah, I go back through. It's like, there it is. I wrote that 5 years ago, and there it is. That's exactly the line I'm looking for. And Ramsey had a different sensibility. He was from the jazz world. And I had nothing to do with that whatsoever. But I learned a lot about that world from him. He introduced me to, oh God, all kinds of people. Pharoah Sanders. He used to play Pharoah Sanders all the time. And he had done so many interesting things in his life. So I used to go down to New Orleans all the time. That was just wonderful. He lived right across from Tulane. Beautiful, beautiful old neighborhood. And I learned a lot. And then I just got confident. I started to be able to write by myself. And that's it. Writing with other people was a good way to start, and people that were nice to me, but would also just quickly say, no, I don't like that line. No, that's not good enough. I think you could do better than that. So that's the way I like to work. I don't want to waste time. You don't have to coddle me. And I just tell me what you think. Let's just, it's a more efficient way of working. So yeah.
And why? I mean, as you were writing, why you went to Dark Side of the Moon? Doing somebody else instead of keep on following the stuff you were writing.
Couple of reasons why. The management that I signed to, and I both agreed that there were just too many girls with guitars out there, and that I should do something that would make me stand out a bit. And they said, what about doing a famous record? What about covering that? And I kept thinking, but what would I do? And then it was like, oh, wait a minute. What about Dark Side of the Moon? And we were all like, yeah, Dark Side of the Moon would. And the thing is that I had always adored that record. And for me, what gives that record added power for me as a singer is that so much of it spoke to all of the concerns that I had and still have about where humanity is going as a species. I mean, when Roger Waters wrote that record, it was the early 70s, and yet it speaks more to our time now than it ever did back then. I mean, for me, that record has a deeply spiritual center. And I feel as if in these crazed times we're going through that we are losing our center as humans are. And you know, all this talk of AI and transhumanism and all of these things that they coo about at Davos, a lot of that really frightens me. And I feel like the best of us is going to be lost, you know, and so I was having all those concerns, and Dark Side kind of speaks to that in so many ways. And so it gave me a vehicle, and I just poured myself into that. And I worked with two great producers, and they had a very clear musical vision for what they wanted on this record. So it's that record was a group effort, definitely a group effort. It's not a typical Mary Fahl record, but it's one I love to perform it live in front. Sometimes we'll do sets where I'll do a typical set of my music and some October project, then we'll come back for the second set and we'll just do Dark Side from start to finish. And it was that was a labor of love for me, and I'm still as passionate about that as I ever was. I love performing Dark Side of the Moon, and we made it our own. That is not a cover record. That not. We really did. I mean, yeah. we did it our way, you know.
I think the album should have been called Dark Side of Humanity instead of
the Dark Side. Though.
Come on,
it's true. It's true.
A lot of people, I think, don't understand the lyrics. They don't know what they. I mean. You know, of course, it's Pink Floyd. They like Pink Floyd music, but yeah. I don't know. People have my well, I have listened to that album many times, and you know, a regular stereo in 5.1 and surround. I have a lot of stuff. So it's a big difference, Mary. Yeah. It's like I don't know. In simple terms, you know, eating in dairy McDonald's versus eating in a nice restaurant. It's a big difference, right? Going from cassette to vinyl, CDs, Blu-rays. It's the same music, but it's very different experience.
Well, that record also introduced me to the world of surround sound. I didn't have that. I don't have that technology in my house. And because I live in an old house, it's little room, like it's a lot of rooms, but not one big space where you can really sit in the middle. You know, you have to sit in the middle. But because of when Mark, my producer, rediscovered the Bob Clearmountain surround mix, he discovered it about a year and a half ago. We thought it had been lost in a fire. He found it. We had it remastered. I didn't know what was the big deal about surround, and then Mark made me sit down and listen on his amazing system, and there's just no going back after that. That's just it's just listening on another whole level. And so when it was time to do this record, we really wanted it in surround, and I will do some Atmos as well. So I'll probably 3 or 4 songs in Atmos, and I'll have Ronald Prent do that mix as well. And I think Ronald did a great job on the surround mix on this. So
totally, But so that was kind of produced or created in completely recorded was in 2006. But what happened? It was not. You end up doing a self-release in 2011. So 5 years after that, right? So what happened with the V2 record?
I didn't even really do I didn't promote the record at all. I put it up for sale, and I didn't, you know, that was that. I had been, and I, you know, the album sold and things like that, but I didn't pour a lot of effort into doing it. And then when he found the surround mix, he said, we should release the Blu-ray of this. And I was like, I don't know, why bother? And so I sent the surround mix to a friend of mine. His name was Rick Pepe. And Rick is an audiophile, like just a crazed audiophile. And I said, Rick, you tell me, you listen to this and give me the honest truth. Don't sugarcoat it. And he called me back and he said, Mary, I'm not joking. This is the Hope Diamond of surround sound mixes. And as you know, Bob Clearmountain is one of the best engineers in the world. And he had done this mix for us as a favor. And, Bob Clearmountain, told us that he told Sir George Martin when they met at a convention that Bob felt this was his best mixing work since the work he did for Roxy Music's Avalon. So we had another producer whose name will not go mention, a good big producer, do this record, but the magic was gone. The magic wasn't there. We knew it. So we begged Bob to do this, and he did it. He did it for us, and did just a magnificent job. I mean, once you hear Dark Art version of Dark Side in surround, it's hard to go back.
Of course, I know.
It's hard to go. You can't go back. You can't. And in fact, I am going to get, so I can listen to the new record in surround. I'm going to get maybe that little Bose surround system. It's with the little, and we have a little guest house. I'll put it in the guest house, and because I have to hear these records again in surround.
Of course.
And, I have to.
I mean, it's not that expensive. I mean, you can.
It's not.
Okay,
no.
so we own a townhouse, right? So I have different floors, and in different floors I have different stairs, and you can get something very decent for $1,000 to $2,000.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't need $10,000.
It's finding the place where you can sit right in the middle and enjoy it. Yeah. But in any case, it was it was just a revelation to me.
And I think you end up winning the 2011 immersive album.
No, that was audition. It was in this. We released the Blu-ray, I believe,
right.
20 or 21, but it was the 2021 immersive. Life and Surround named it Immersive Album of the Year, and then we won the Listener's Choice Award and all kinds of things. And that was another record that it's really been word of mouth among audiophiles. And it's mostly guys, I have to say. It's a rare woman that buys that record, but it's sort of the underground audiophile, and it's worldwide. And you can see them on the forums. They have all those forums, but it was word of mouth, passed it around, and that album still sells every single week, which is very, very gratifying. After all this time and the heartbreak of having V2 fold before the record came out, it's again one of those spiritual lessons that, when everything has its time, and what is yours will come to you eventually, and eventually it happened.
And then you put this together, which is an unbelievable album.
Oh, I love that record. Oh my God. Yeah, that was 2013. And we got the thing at the Mock Chunk Opera House, and they said, if you want to record an album here, we have one of the state-of-the-art studios, Purple Audio, right in the building. And we are mic'd to do live albums. And I said, well, okay, why not? And then I was talking to my husband, and I said, we're going to make a live record. We should film it too. And I managed to, through different sources, find a team of people that worked for PBS, and they came and filmed it on their off hours. When you have something on PBS, you have to film the audience a certain way. They have best practices. You have to light the stage a certain way. You have to show the audience. And so I said, just film it just like you would as if it were a PBS special. And I thought, then I'll just market it to PBS. And that's what I did. And they picked it up. And here's the thing most people don't know. That's the first gig I ever played with Mark and the band. That was our first show. And it was, talk about biting off more than you can chew. But my gosh, it worked. We pulled it off. And I had one of my favorite mixers, Leonard Hospodor, mixed the record for me, because I love the way Leonard mixes my voice. And Mark and I sometimes disagree in terms of how we like mixes to sound.
Yeah.
But Leonard understands my voice, and he understands how to get this. I like the voice to sound big and chewy, or like a good red wine, like a good Chilean red, you
All
know.
right.
And he manages to get all the different tones in my voice, and I love the way I sound on that record. I just do. And it was a fun night. The audience, it was a packed house. The audience knew they were being filmed, so they just went crazy, and it's just a fun record. I thoroughly enjoyed that.
A very, very good album.
Yeah, and it's a retrospective of kind of a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
My music, October Project, some covers.
Did you end up sending this to October Project friends?
No.
No. As a Christmas present? No, I'm joking.
No.
And then, so after that, you did well with that, and then this guy came together, right? This record.
Not what. Yep. And then I worked with John Lissauer. John was best known for working for years with Leonard Cohen. In fact, John produced the first Leonard's version of Hallelujah. And John is great because he also writes for movies. John is very cinematic. And so we ended up working together on that record. And Leonard also was the mixer on that. And then after that record, I got a letter from Anne Rice out of the blue. You know, the Anne Rice Interview with the Vampire, Anne Rice.
Yeah, that one.
And it was a fan letter. And she said, oh, you know, I've just discovered you. And I guess one of her fans had said, oh, you know, October Project was very influenced by Anne Rice. And we had hoped when we were on Epic to get a song in the movie Interview with the Vampire, because, you know, it wasn't out of the question. Epic was trying to get our music into movies and TV and things like that. But we didn't get it, the gig. And but Anne ended up listening to all the stuff we did and to my music and Sony Classical stuff. And she just said, she gave me a really funny compliment. She said, I have found the voice I've always been looking for. Why, it's neither male nor female. It's perfectly androgynous. And I was like, thank you, I think. But she was wonderful to me. And I ended up writing with John. I ended up writing a song for the audiobook version of her book, The Wolves of Midwinter. And it went on the audiobook. And then Anne ended up dedicating a whole novel to me, Prince Lestat. And it was wonderful. And then later, she asked me to start writing music. She was shopping around for a TV deal. And so she asked me to start writing potential songs for a vampire series. And so John and I, John is great at he understands writing for television. He understands writing cues and writing, and we write so well together. We get the job done very, very quickly. And so it's typically when I work with John, this is what he understands. When I sing a song, when I write the lyric, and then when I'm singing it, I'm looking for particular touch points so I can write out a map, an emotional map for him. Like, this is where I want to be here. Then I want you to get a little spooky. Then I want to jump up and go somewhere completely unexpected where it explodes out. Then I want you to take it back. So I can give a map to him of where emotionally I am in that song. And he could just match that melodically, just like that. And because he's so used to working for film. So we wrote that song in a week for Anne Rice. And then we wrote several songs, and I don't know where they're going to end up. And Anne, of course, passed away this year, which was very, very sad. And so who knows where they ended up? I don't know. I know there is a series coming out in the fall based on Interview with the Vampire. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
And then now we have your latest album, which is a masterpiece. So a lot of questions about here. So why that particular song? Why not, Johnny Mitchell, or other? I mean,
Well, here's the
these
deal.
people?
First of all, this has been the year of Joni. So everybody and their brother is recording Joni Mitchell songs. And I have already covered Joni doing both sides now on Love and Gravity. And so I felt like, I've done my Joni, and I don't think anybody does Joni as well as Joni does Joni.
Correct.
And, whenever I hear the covers, for the most part, I'd rather just go back and listen to Joni. The same thing happened, sometimes that isn't the case with artists. When I think about Hallelujah, Jeff Buckley's version is just as good or better than Leonard Cohen's version of Hallelujah. But that isn't always the case. In the case of Joni, I mostly want to just hear her. And so I did both sides now. I did it my way. And I covered Leonard Cohen too on my Winter Songs and Carols. I did Winter Lady, which is one of my favorite Leonard songs. And so, Leonard Cohen was a huge influence. Joni was a huge influence. So I could have done a Sandy Denny song because Sandy was a huge influence, but I had already covered her on Winter Songs and Carols, my Christmas record. So these were, and I wanted to get a little more rock and roll because I like to give my band, especially Mark, who is such a good guitar player, I owed it to him to give him some stuff he could really rock out on. You know what I mean? He's a standout player, and Mark plays every instrument on that record except for drums, and he wrote all the string arrangements. He conducted the chamber ensemble. He does everything, and he does it all well, So, but I wanted to give him that opportunity to really do what he does so well, and so I went for a couple of things that were more upbeat and rockin', and I had to do songs that we both absolutely loved. We had to just adore these songs, and we do.
This is a very good album, and the quality of the recording and Pink Floyd one and everything makes a big difference. So what's coming up? So are you going? I imagine
tour this record. We're gonna tour this. I have lots and lots of band shows coming up where it's the full band. I'm going to be in New York City on August 9th. I know it's New York on a Tuesday night in August, but
I'm going to be there.
You're going to be there? Oh my God.
Sure. Yeah, I bought the ticket a while ago. What's happened? So I have seen you a couple of times, but never with a band. I want to see what the band experience is.
Oh, it's a whole different experience.
Yeah, that's where I'm going.
Oh gosh, and it's
I'm going to be there. Right?
Oh, that's great. I'm going to play, and I love playing with them. It's just because we can do things. It's pure fun for me. Those shows are just like a vacation for me. And so we'll be August 9th at City Winery, the Loft there in New York. And you can have dinner there, everybody. It's beautiful setting right on Pier 57 and on the West Side Highway. And then we do City Winery Boston at the end of the month. And we do the Sellersville Theater in Bucks County, PA. Yeah. And I'll be going up to Rochester in the fall. I'm going up to Plymouth, Mass in the fall, and Auburn, New York, and on. And we always do a couple of Christmas shows in New York and Sellersville Theater. And that's a mix of Christmas, but also, I'll do some of this as well. But I have to tell you, I love this album cover too, because it's exactly what I wanted. I love those old Francois. You remember Francois Hardy, French singer from the late 60s, early 70s. She was a fashion icon. And I said to my great graphic designer, I'm going to give you all these Francois Hardy album covers, and I want you to be inspired by that. Yeah. I want it to look grainy, and I want it to have that sort of colorful font of a Francois Hardy record. And boy, she deliver. It has a slightly vintage quality to it, which I really it's my favorite album cover of all time for me. Of anything I've ever done, that's my favorite album cover.
Yeah, and I I like also the picture that you have inside when you were 14 years old, and,
I know that's me.
and another one, I don't know, you were probably 5, I don't know, 6.
No. I was older than that. I must have been about 12 in that
Oh,
picture.
wow.
About 12
With
years
some record on the living room. Yeah.
with the records on the floor. Yes, exactly.
So final 2-3 questions. So you're going to be touring with this for, I suppose, a year or so.
Yeah,
And then,
about a year. I'll give this, 8 months to a year, and see how I do. And then it's time to make another record, And
what would you like to do if you have the opportunity? Forget
you
money,
somebody said
budget, and
ping. You know who I'd love to work with? Like if I could just have anything in the world.
yeah.
And I know I'm going to mispronounce his name, so I'm sorry, but I've never heard anyone actually say his name.
Yeah.
But I discovered Gustavo Santaolalla.
Yeah, see.
No,
Yeah,
I can't say it. Okay,
he's from Argentina. Yes,
he's from Argentina, but I discovered an album years ago called Ronroco, and
yeah.
Ronroco it's a charango, and I played that record to death. I even bought a charango and learned how to play it because of that record. And then he went on, and I always felt like, well, I discovered him first, but then he went on to do the music for a bunch of different movies, a lot of different movies, and he's just so cinematic. And yeah, I would.
The way you do it, it's Santa Olaya.
Santa Olaya. Okay.
Yeah, that's the way. Yeah.
Santa Olaya, because I just won't say his name because
so I very likely I'm going to be interviewing him next month, actually. So.
Yeah. Oh no! I'm sorry. I screamed.
No, it's okay.
Are you joking?
I will put you in touch with him when I do.
Because that's honestly, if I oh my God.
He's a very nice person. Okay, so in the world,
like
right?
Nice
in my world, I'm a computer scientist. There is a lot of crazy, good, bad, good people. In music business, the same.
Yes.
A lot of good and bad people, but he's a very nice person, so he will reach out.
Well, if you just honestly,
very likely, I'm very serious. Very likely, I will. And so because
there's another person too that I would love to work with. Have you ever heard of a Lebanese violinist? I mean, he's a violinist and so much more. Named Claude Chaloub. Have you ever heard of Claude?
No.
So he plays in a way that is, it's part Middle Eastern but part Western classical, but he just bends the notes in that Middle Eastern way, but he plays with so much passion, and he's gone on to do many other things. And but he's another person that I would love to collaborate with. So if you talk about like collaborations, I don't think so much of singing with other people, but I think of people composing for me. Or I did get a chance a couple of years ago. The in-house composer for the New Jersey Symphony was an October Project fan, and he had written this whole piece based on a Shakespeare play, and he said, I just didn't want a soprano. He said, I kept thinking, I want somebody that sounds like Mary Fahl. And so his wife said, well, why don't you just get Mary Fahl?
That's right. Yeah.
So he called me, and I ended up doing it. And oh my gosh, it was the most fun to sing on stage with an orchestra.
Yeah.
And we played in these giant theaters, and the music was stunningly beautiful. It was, again, extremely cinematic. And oh my gosh, that was fun. And I kept thinking, God, boy, I'd love to do that again. And it would be fun to collaborate and have someone compose with me. And I'm good at writing lyrics when I have an assignment, give me a subject, give me a story, and I can write the lyric. I'm not so good at just writing about my life. I mean, everything you write is about you. You're always projecting your own self onto everything.
Yeah.
But I love having an assignment, like a book or a movie. I can immerse myself into the world of a book or a movie, and and know what those characters are thinking. And so that's what I would love to do. So Gustavo, if you're out there, you would make
Yeah,
it.
I was fine. Yeah,
I would feel like I died and gone to heaven if I could work with you at some point. And I'm
I'm
very
happy.
easy to work with.
Happy to help out, Mary. Like I told you with the other project, the other stuff that I will send you in Spanish, and
Yes,
I'm glad that seriously now. I looking back at your life, I suppose I'm glad that you were able to conquer your fears. It's so, and
yeah,
I'm saying that for my own benefit as well. And it's so easy to give up when everything is
yeah,
goes sideways, or a
yeah,
relationship, a marriage, a husband, or your parent die, whatever
yeah,
it is.
yeah.
Some people give up, some people don't, and I'm glad you didn't.
Well, there's something about there's a marvelous writer named Anthony Peake who's a friend of mine, and he wrote a book about sort of based on the Greek idea of the daemon, daimon, that it's sort of your higher self, or sort of maybe what would be called the holy guardian, or that muse, that thing inside you that guides your life and says, no, no, Mary, I'm going to drag, you're not going to medical school. No, 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 no. It's just that if you're willing to do the work, that the daemon shows up, and it's like you have to show up for the muses or they won't help you. And if you do, and if you have fortitude, they will take you to where you need to be. I truly believe that. I believe there are forces that oversee our life. I do. I know. I don't think it. I know it. And so,
I'm here. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Have you?
See, with especially, for example, with Gustavo Santaolalla.
Olaya.
Okay.
Santa Olaya.
Santaolalla.
Yeah.
Okay, like O'Malley, Olaya. And that charango is something that I've been in. In fact, I've written songs on the charango because it inspires me so much. And that's what would be, because I've always loved, for example, Mercedes Sosa had these amazing string players around her, guitar player, and the accompaniments are so beautiful. And whenever I listen to her, it's like, boy, would I love that. And he does that in a lot of his soundtracks and things like that. And so to have those, I've just always wanted to sing with those sounds. And so anyway, really, that's the person I would.
You have a lot to give, Mary. I mean, you have music for the next 30 years. So
I
keep
hope
on
so.
working hard,
Yep,
do some
yep.
introspection, read some poetry, go inside your dark places and keep on writing, because
I will. I will. This has been such a pleasure speaking with you.
well, this is, I'm here to
Pretty
listen.
good at this.
My interviews, Mary, are very different. I
Yes.
will be the same. If I was talking to Peter Gabriel, or whatever, I'm not going to be talking about the hits. For me, it's very important to know the person behind the instrument, the lady behind the guitar, whatever. It's like a psychotherapy in a way. I'm the psychologist.
It's
I
true.
kind of point in you, talk about this, talk about that, but at the end, I wanna get to know you as a human being.
Yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah,
no, not just the hits or this or that. And
yeah, yeah.
you have done well in your life, Mary. You have, conquered your fears, and
Yeah, I conquered my fear of playing
you
by
know,
myself, which was terrifying, and writing, which was terrifying. And I was lucky that I met my husband. That was a gift from God. And that everything was easier after that. And I had a more well-rounded life after that. Before that, everything was just focus, focus, focus. And my whole life was getting deals, and there's more to life than that. And so I have a nice home life now. I have a happy home life. And I learned how to grow a garden, and my husband had a big garden. So we have a giant organic garden that we spend a lot of time in, and we grow our own vegetables, and which is always beautiful in the summer. I love that, because we have our own zucchini and beans, and it's just like nature renews itself. And we live in a very pretty place. We're overlooking the Delaware River. It's beautiful in the summer.
yeah.
And so I'm very, very fortunate in that way. and so I have a happy life now, and better late than never.
Yeah, well, I'm very happy for you. And if
Yeah.
you ever come this way, as I told you before, you're welcome here. My
Well, I'd
wife is a
love to
very good
see,
cook.
I go down to DC quite often. Rich has a family in DC, so we're down there, and I have family down there as well. So yes,
Let me
DC.
know, and you're invited to come here for dinner. My wife is a very good, she's from Colombia. She's a very good cook. So,
Oh, I'll take you up on that. And
oh, very good Colombian stuff that you never.
you can play me some Latin music from
Well,
South America, Latin America.
All right.
All
Okay, Mary, it was very nice talking to you. Thank you very much for your time. We talked like a couple hours now, and I know I wrote some notes and stuff that I need to do, and for you, and I will help you in any way I can.
Thank you.
You're a very, very nice, decent woman, so I'm very happy. So
Thank you.
it was very nice talking to you.
Nice
Take it
to
easy.
talk with you too. Bye bye.